A term 6-hand rule is not an official electrical code rule, but rather a safety guideline suggesting that no more than 6 disconnects should be needed to energize all circuits in an electrical system. The National Electrical Code, or NEC, generally mandates a main disconnect for every service entrance and all subpanels. This main disconnect acts as the primary way to cut power to the entire electrical system or a specific portion of it. However, there's an exception for subpanels that are protected by a main disconnect at the service entrance or another subpanel. This exception applies under specific conditions. Firstly, the subpanel must be located within the same building and not in a separate structure, and secondly, the subpanel must be fed from a branch circuit protected by a circuit breaker or fuse. Finally, the branch circuit conductors must be appropriately sized for the load they supply. In multi-unit dwellings like townhomes, condos, and apartments, it's common to install a main disconnect only at the service entrance or a central subpanel. Individual units then receive power from branch circuits protected by circuit breakers in the central subpanel. This setup aligns with the NEC exception because the subpanels in individual units aren't separate structures and are protected by a main disconnect at the service entrance. Despite the NEC not always requiring main disconnects in subpanels, it's a good safety practice to install them. A main disconnect in each subpanel offers a convenient and safe method to de-energize all circuits within the unit during emergencies or for maintenance. In these scenarios, it is important to understand how the National Electrical Code, or NEC, dictates the use of main disconnects in electrical subpanels. Generally, the NEC mandates the installation of a main disconnect for every service entrance and all subpanels. The primary function of a main disconnect is to serve as the principal means of de-energizing the entire electrical system or a specific portion thereof. This ensures a safe and efficient way to cut off power when needed, especially during emergencies or maintenance activities. It's important to understand that there are exceptions to the main disconnect rule, particularly for subpanels that are protected by a main disconnect at the service entrance or at another upstream subpanel. For this exception to be valid, certain conditions must be met. Firstly, the subpanel must be located within the same building and cannot be situated in a separate structure. This means that the subpanel and the main disconnect protecting it must be part of the same physical building or structure, and secondly, the subpanel must be fed from a branch circuit that is protected by a circuit breaker or fuse. This ensures that the subpanel is connected to a circuit with appropriate overcurrent protection. Thirdly, the branch circuit conductors feeding the subpanel must be sized appropriately for the load they are intended to supply. This sizing must comply with NEC guidelines to prevent overheating and potential fire hazards. In multi-unit dwellings such as townhomes, condominiums, and apartments, a common practice is to install a main disconnect only at the service entrance or at a central subpanel. This approach centralizes the main disconnect function, simplifying the electrical system's design and management. Individual units within the building are then fed from branch circuits that are protected by circuit breakers located in the central subpanel. This ensures that each unit has its own protected power supply without the need for a separate main disconnect within each unit. This practice aligns with the NEC exception, which states that subpanels and individual units do not need their own main disconnect if they are not separate structures and are protected by a main disconnect at the service entrance. This setup is both compliant with the NEC and practical for multi-unit buildings. Even though the NEC might not require main disconnects in every subpanel under certain conditions, it is still considered a sound safety practice to install them. A main disconnect in each subpanel provides an additional layer of safety, allowing for a convenient and rapid way to de-energize all circuits within that specific unit. This can be particularly useful in emergency situations such as electrical fires or floods, where quickly cutting off power to a specific unit can help prevent further damage and ensure the safety of occupants and emergency responders. Furthermore, a main disconnect in each subpanel simplifies maintenance tasks. When performing electrical work within a unit, a technician can easily de-energize the circuits within that unit without affecting the power supply to other units in the building. This minimizes disruption and enhances safety during maintenance activities.